नमस्कार, दिस इज़ मी सान्या राज, बैक अगेन। मैं आपके सामने फिर रूबरू हुई हूँ। आज मेरे साथ बहुत ही स्पेशल, बड़े ही लेजेंडरी, बड़े ही हमारे परमवीर मेजर जनरल जीडी बख्शी मेरे साथ जुड़ेंगे। मैं बहुत ही ज़्यादा प्राउड फ़ील करती हूँ। आज हमारा 73rd रिपब्लिक डे कल ही हुआ है और मुझे ये मौका मिला है उनसे रूबरू होने का। उनकी अंडरस्टैंडिंग में जो बहुत बड़े जो हमारे फ्रीडम फाइटर्स रह चुके हैं, उसमें से एक का जो बड़ा नाम है, नेताजी सुभाष चंद्र बोस, जिनके वो बहुत ज़्यादा उनकी उनकी पराक्रम, उनकी वीरता की वो बहुत ज़्यादा गुण गाते हैं और मैं भी उन्हीं के साथ ये बात को समझना चाहती हूँ और मैं जानती हूँ थोड़ा बहुत, मैं अपनी नॉलेज को और बढ़ाना चाहती हूँ। इसीलिए मैंने उनको कहा कि कि आप आइए हमारे प्लेटफ़ॉर्म में और जो हमारा यूथ है और जो हमारे एडल्ट्स हैं, उनको ये बताएँ कि कितना इम्पोर्टेंट है अपने देश की सेवा के लिए अपनी जान देते हुए भी डरना नहीं। उनको ये पता चले कि क्या-क्या किया हमारे परमवीर नौजवानों ने, हमारे फ्रीडम फाइटर्स ने इस देश को आज़ादी दिलाने में। हमारे देश 400 साल गुलाम रहा ब्रिटिशर्स राज के बीच में और जब कैसे एकजुट होकर, यूनाइट होकर इन्होंने आज़ादी दिलाई। मैं इसीलिए एसएसआरियन प्लेटफ़ॉर्म में भी आई हूँ क्योंकि मुझे लगता है कि यूनिटी जो हमने सीखनी है कोई मिशन को बढ़ाने के लिए, वो बहुत इम्पोर्टेंट होती है। और ऐसे फ्रीडम फाइटर्स जो हमारे लाइफ़ में आए हैं, उनको हमें फ़ॉलो करना चाहिए और एक ये ना नेताजी सुभाष चंद्र बोस जी हैं, जो अ, वो आते हैं। अब मैं इतना व्हाई आई वांट मेजर जनरल बख्शी टू बी हियर इज़ बेसिकली टू अलाउ पीपल टू अंडरस्टैंड, टू सी यूथ कि हम क्या-क्या कर रहे हैं हमारे देश में और हम अपने देश में कैसे एक अच्छी एजुकेशन दें। तो ये जो वीरता है, पराक्रमता है, ये सिर्फ़ जिम में जाकर बॉडी को बनाना और दिखाना उसकी नहीं है। ये एक मेंटल एटीट्यूड है। स ऑफ़ कोर्स अपनी बॉडी को तो हमने स्ट्रॉन्ग बनाना ही है, पर उसके साथ-साथ हमारी जो मेंटल स्ट्रेंथ है, वो कैसे आए? जो हमारे वैल्यू सिस्टम है, वो कैसे आए? एंड आई थिंक इसलिए भी हमें इन सब चीज़ों को, इन सब लोगों को की किताबों को, बायोपिक्स को पढ़ना चाहिए। मेजर जनरल बख्शी ने भी एक किताब लिखी है जिसमें उन्होंने लिखा है किसने हमें आज़ादी दिलाई और उसमें उनका टाइटल है गांधी और नेताजी उनके अपने थॉट्स हैं। हम उनके थॉट्स को पढ़ना चाहिए क्योंकि हमें ये सीख मिलेगी कि कौन क्या कर रहा था। फिर बाकी हम और भी अपने रेफरेंसेस बनाएँ जिससे कि हम अपने आप को अपडेट करें। मैं उम्मीद करती हूँ कि जनरल बख्शी आएँगे जल्दी क्योंकि उनका नेट का भी प्रॉब्लम हो रहा था, इश्यू हो रहा था। इसलिए भी मैं मैं बस फिंगर ही क्रॉस कर सकती हूँ कि वो आ जाएँ अभी क्योंकि उनसे अभी मेरी बात हुई थी, उन्होंने कहा कि मैं पहुँच रहा हूँ। तो लेट्स सी कि वो पहुँचते हैं कि नहीं पहुँचते। बट आज जो मुझे रूबरू करने का आपसे मौका मिल रहा है, वो मुझे बहुत अच्छा लग रहा है बिकॉज़ मैं एसएसआरियंस और बाकी जितने भी लोग हमें सुनते हैं ब्रिजवानी में या जो भी, मैं उनसे यही मैं चाहूँगी कि आप लिखें मुझे, अगर आपको लगता है कि हम ऑफ़ कोर्स सुशांत सिंह के लिए तो हम टॉपिक्स करेंगे ही करेंगे क्योंकि सुशांत का तो जो हमने बीड़ा उठाया है उसको तो हम पूरा करेंगे ही। बट उसके अलावा भी जो अच्छे टॉपिक्स हैं जिसमें हम कुछ सिखा या सीख सकते हैं, दोनों ही बातें होती हैं। हम जब भी किसी को सुनते हैं, तो हम सुनते हैं, हम सुनाते हैं। ऐसे ही हम सीखते हैं और सिखाते हैं। वो जो सिलसिला है एक ग्रोथ का क्योंकि सुशांत भी हमें यही सिखाता था कि हम कैसे अपने आप को ग्रो करें, हम कैसे अपनी पोटेंशियल को बनाएँ। तो इसीलिए दूसरे-दूसरे लोगों को सुनना जब वो आते हैं, तो हम सीखते हैं कि वो क्या-क्या उन्होंने क्या-क्या चीज़ें करी अपनी ज़िंदगी में जिससे कि हम वो जो इस मकाम में पहुँचे हैं, वो किस तरीके से ब पहुँचे हैं। तो मैं आपसे यही गुज़ारिश करूँगी कि आप मुझे ये बताइए कि आप लोग इंटरेस्टेड हैं किसी और को सुनने के लिए क्योंकि हम हमेशा से यही कोशिश करेंगे अपने प्लेटफ़ॉर्म से कि हम सुशांत की बातें करें, ज़रूर करें क्योंकि सुशांत का एक मुद्दा जो है हमने उठाया है, उसको हम पूरा देखना चाहते हैं, उसका सच देखना चाहते हैं, उस पे जस्टिस देखना चाहते हैं। उसके अलावा भी जो-जो हमारे देश में इश्यूज़ हैं, हम उसको उठाना चाहते हैं या फिर जो बहुत इंस्पिरेटर्स हैं, जो अच्छा काम कर रहे हैं, जो लेडीज़ अच्छा काम कर रही हैं, जो जेंट्स अच्छा काम कर रही हैं, हम उनको सामने लाना चाह रहे हैं। क्योंकि यही सब चीज़ देखकर हम और हमारे जो बच्चे हैं, उनको इंस्पिरेशंस मिलती हैं और फिर हम जैसे जो कॉमन लोग हैं, जो कॉमनर्स हैं, उनको भी एक मुद्दा मिलता है कि हम कैसे अपनी खुद की ज़िंदगियों को ठीक रख सकें। तो मैं चाहूँगी कि आप लोग सब मुझे उस पे अपना थॉट बताएँ और होपफुली जनरल बख्शी आएँगे बिकॉज़ उन्होंने मुझे कहा था अभी 2 मिनट पहले मेरी बात हुई है। मैं उनको फ़ोन कर लगाना चाहती हूँ कि बात करें कि वो क्योंकि मैंने उनसे मुलाकात तो करी है। अब देखें कि वो उनका कोशिश कर रही हूँ कि वो आएँ। The person you सो देखते हैं कि क्योंकि उन्होंने मुझे अभी 2 मिनट पहले कहा कि वो ऑनलाइन आ रहे हैं, सो लेट्स होप ही विल कम। बट यही होता है कि हम जब अपनी लाइफ में अपने कुछ काम करते हैं, कुछ भी काम करें, वहाँ पर कुछ ना कुछ तो रोड़े पड़ेंगे। उन रोड़ों को हमें आगे कैसे अपने हटाना है, वो हमें सीखना है। तो अब जैसे ये एक रोड़ा है कि हमने किसी को बुलाया है पर वो कुछ उनका नेट ठीक नहीं चल रहा या कुछ है, तो कुछ ना कुछ ईश्वर प्रॉब्लम डालता है बट हमें देखना पड़ता है कि हम कैसे आगे चलें, आगे बढ़ें। तो अभी जैसे ये एक इश्यू है उनका नेट का इश्यू मुझे लग रहा है कि कुछ है कि वो नहीं आ पाए हैं। बट आई एम श्योर कि वो कोशिश कर रहे हैं क्योंकि उन्होंने मुझे अभी लिखा है कि वो आ रहे हैं। तो लेट्स होप कि मैं अभी बनी रहूँ क्योंकि उन्होंने मुझे कहा है कि वो कोशिश कर रहे हैं। अ, तो लेट्स सी अ और इसमें क्या होता है कि जब हम लोग ये सारी चीज़ें करते हैं, व्हेन वी आर डूइंग दीज़ काइंड ऑफ थिंग्स, वी हैव टू ऑलवेज़ टेक दिस एज़ अ थिंग कि हो सकता है हमारे साथ। तो हमें इन सब चीज़ों की आदत हो जाती है कि हर वक़्त कहते हैं ना तीर निशाने पे नहीं लगता और कभी-कभी चूक जाते हैं हम लोग भी क्योंकि अभी मैंने इनसे 2-3 बार सुबह से बात करी है और 2-3 बार उन्होंने कहा है कि वो आ रहे हैं और अभी उन्होंने मुझे बस बताया है कि इंटरनेट में कुछ तकलीफ़ हो रही है और अब इंटरनेट को अगर ईश्वर की कृपा रही, तो उनका इंटरनेट ठीक हो जाएगा। तो मैं आप लोगों से बस यही चाहूँगी कि थोड़ा-सा एक लिटिल मुझे मौका दें क्योंकि मैं बस उन्हीं की इंतज़ार में हूँ। बट अगर कोई मुझसे बात करना चाहता है, तो ज़रूर आगे आइए और बात करिए और जो भी आपके क्वेश्चन्स हैं ज़रूर कुछ भी पूछना चाहें ज़रूर पूछिए। मुझे वैसे आदत नहीं है रूबरू करने की, बात करने की सबसे बट ज़रूर आप करिए क्योंकि आज मुझे मौका मिला है। तो एनीबॉडी हू वांट्स टू राइट अ कमेंट प्लीज़ ज़रूर करिए क्योंकि मैंने अभी मुझे जो क्या नाम है? या जनता दास जी ने हेलो बोला है, गुड मॉर्निंग बोला है, मैं उनको बोलती हूँ गुड मॉर्निंग और आनंद यादव जी बोल रहे हैं हेलो, तो मैं उनको भी बोलती हूँ। सो एनीबॉडी हू वांट्स टू हैव अ वर्ड विद मी प्लीज़ डू टॉक टू मी जब तक ये बख्शी जी आ रहे हैं। सो मैं उनको फ़ोन एक बार और लगा देती हूँ और देखती हूँ कि वो उठा पाते हैं फ़ोन कि नहीं। सो ये दिस इज़ रियली रियली यू नो लेट्स होप कि उनका नेट ठीक है। The person you're calling is not चलें, वो तो मुझे समझ नहीं आ रहा है कि आई एम जस्ट कॉलिंग हिम अप मैं उन्हीं को ही फ़ोन कर रही हूँ। तो तो मुझे नहीं पता कि क्या इश्यू है बिकॉज़ नेट तो प्रॉब्लम करता ही है लोगों को। तो अब ये एक प्रॉब्लम आई है हमारे पास नेट की। मैं उम्मीद कर रही थी उनका नेट ठीक होए बट आई एम सो सॉरी पीपल दैट हिज़ नेट इज़ नॉट वर्किंग and that's why he's not even lifting my phone and I'm so it was not at all called for but unfortunately ये हुआ है कि उनका नेट काम नहीं कर रहा सो आई हैव टू कॉल दिस ऑफ बिकॉज अभी तक तो उनको आ जाना चाहिए था सो लेट्स सी अगर मैं 1-2 मिनट और दूं उनको बिकॉज I'm really, really, I really apologize on behalf of, the net. It's totally not possible because उनका net नहीं काम कर रहा. It's really, really sorry I am because ये तो ऐसा नहीं हुआ कभी भी हमारे साथ पहले. So, hello जगदीश जी, I'm so sorry. मेरे guest का net नहीं काम कर रहा. And we are trying, he's saying he's trying, but he's not able to, come to us. So I'm really, really I apologize for this time and I really don't know uh, कब तक उनका नेट आएगा. So I'll have to call this up and I just hope. Oh, that's really nice of you, Janta Dasji, because I was really, really hoping that time. Ah, now he's come. I was thinking that अब उनका आ गया है.
Yeah.
So good to see you, sir. So good to see you. कैसे हैं आप?
Oh, a bit under the weather, but
Yeah, you're sounding really, really not in a good shape. Hello? Right. Yes, sir. Hello, sir. Namaskar.
yeah, yeah.
Namaskar, sir. Good to see you.
Same here, same here. Very good to see you.
Sir, and I'm so sorry. आप अभी इतनी आपकी तबीयत खराब है, फिर भी आप आए. I'm so grateful and
Uh,
really grateful to have you on board.
thank you so much for having me.
सर आपका मैंने आई हैव बीन वाचिंग यू एंड आपने काफी वेरी इंटरेस्टिंग स्टफ बताया था रिगार्डिंग आवर फ्रीडम फाइटर्स स्पेशली वन ऑफ नेताजी सुभाष चंद्र बोस आपने किताब भी लिखी है उसके बारे में मैंने बताया लोगों को आई वांट टू नो कि यू आर योरसेल्फ अ फाइटर अ वॉरियर you've done lot of you've been into battles what is your take on the new generation what is it that you want the new generation to know about our history of India in terms of freedom जिन तरीके से फ्रीडम हुई पड़ी है
Uh, every country has a foundational narrative, what is called a foundational myth. I, why is this echo coming? Can we do away with the echo? Uh,
सर मुझे मुझे एक को तो आ नहीं रही है आई एम नॉट, कैन यू जस्ट रिमूव द वन, बिकॉज आपके दो प्लेटफॉर्म्स हैं इसलिए इको आ रही है आपके। ये वाला तो ठीक है, दूसरा वाला जो है उसको आप निकाल दें।
Okay, okay. Yeah, much better.
या या
अच्छा. So, as I was saying, that every country has a foundational narrative,
राइट
a myth about how it was formed, the sacrifices by whom, in what form, that led to the emergence of that, crystallization of it as a nation state. The foundational narrative of the Indian Republic that was handed down to us by the Raj, the colonial dispensation, was that it was a non-violent struggle that made us free. It was a unique struggle, unique in the whole world, that India entered the Westphalian system of nation states founded by the Treaty of Westphalia 1648, which created a series of nation states based upon the monopoly of violence. The state had to disarm all the jathedars, subedars, every little armed desperado here and there who was carrying arms and taking taxes on the road. They had to be disarmed so that only the armed forces of the Union and the police forces could bear arms. Others had to get licenses, you know. And with these carriage of arms, the state, the state controlled all violence,
राइट
monopolized all violence. So how could you enter a system of nation state premised upon violence through a non-violent freedom struggle in which you starved yourself to make your enemy weep and cry, oh, oh, poor chap, they are starving for us. I mean, it is utter nonsense. It is utter crap to believe that the British Empire, to which looted $44 trillion from India
माय गुडनेस
and caused six famines, in the last of which, in the last of which, the Bengal famine of 1943, 3.5 million Indians died of starvation. And if you take a head count of the 6 million, of the six famines, then the total goes to about 18 to 20 million Indians killed by starvation deliberately. This is worse than the Jewish Holocaust. It is 3 to 4 times that number killed. Such a country which had done this would have gone because Gandhi was fasting. Are you out of your mind? I mean, you expect us to believe that, the simple fact is that, when the Lord Clement Attlee, the British
या
Prime Minister from 1945 to 50, came to India in 1956, he stayed with the governor of West Bengal, Justice B.B. Chakrabarti, who had a 2-day-long discussion with him. And he
या
asked him, you know, that the Quit India movement led by Mahatma Gandhi had been decisively crushed by you. And in 1945, you won the war. Why then did you leave in such a tearing hurry in, in 1947, just a year and a half after you had won the Second World War? So Clement Attlee answered in just 3 words. You know what he said? Subhash Chandra Bose, Azad Hind Fauj. It is because of that that we had to go. Because, there was a British Indian army of 25 lakh, 2.5
mm,
million men who had
mm,
fought against the Germans, against the Japanese, against the Italians, and they had won.
mm,
And they had about 25,000 officers. So they had no
mm,
dearth of leadership also. The senior most among them, Brigadier Karyappa, had reached the rank of brigadier. You know, now the simple fact is that uh, we had just 40,000 British troops in India. The rest had all gone back
yeah,
after the war. They were sick and tired of 6 years of non-stop fighting. They wanted to get back to their families. Their families wanted to see them. Britain had taken such devastation. Her factories had been bombed. Where would we get an army now to fight these 25 lakh battle-hardened Indians?
mm,
The entire loyalty of this force had become suspect because Netaji had filled them with ideas of patriotism, nationalism, duty, honor, and there were any time simmerings of revolt. In fact, the first revolt, I hope you remember,
mm,
February 18th of February 1946. How many of us really remember that the that the Royal Indian Navy mutiny out of 80 ships, 79 they revolted against the British. They brought down the Union Jack. They put up the tricolor, and they went round the streets of roads of Mumbai and Karachi, shouting "Jai Hind, Jai Hind" with portraits of Netaji.
mm,
Now you know
mm,
who gave us freedom.
mm,
But Justice Chakrabarti, being a lawyer, wasn't satisfied. He asked him the next question. Clement Attlee, Lord Clement Attlee. And you know what the question was? What then was Mahatma Gandhi's contribution to forcing the British to leave India? What was Clement's face twisted a smile as he spelled out the word Mininal. However, Beg Gandhiji, and he did contribute a lot towards grassroots organization, towards involving the Indian peasantry in this freedom struggle, making it fast-paced, etc. But it was having no effect on the British. They could have continued with this non-violent agitation. What they were desperate to see was that India did not turn violent like in 1857. That
mm,
was a nightmare for the British.
mm,
And Gandhi was helping them to do precisely that, whether knowingly or unknowingly.
mm.
Have you understood?
Yeah,
They wanted
yeah.
a peaceful India. And if you
Mm,
ensure a peaceful India, the British were very happy giving you a terrific media build-up. They passed orders that, he would be called not Mr. Gandhi, but Mahatma Gandhi by everyone, you
mm,
know. So the
mm,
point is they had an agenda in building up Gandhi. And the
mm,
pity is that though we got freedom through the violence,
mm,
through the violence of, through the violence, through the violence of Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose and his Azad Hind Fauj,
mm.
power wasn't given to the Hind. Power was handed over to Gandhi, Nehru combined.
Yeah.
And they told Gandhi, the Congress Working Committee wanted Sardar Patel as the Prime Minister. But they
Yeah.
told Gandhi to anoint Nehru because they liked Nehru. Because Nehru hated Subhash Chandra Bose. He had been educated in Eton and Harrow and studied in Oxford. So they wanted, he was almost half British himself, a brown Sahib. They wanted a brown
Uh,
Sahib and carry
mm,
on with their agenda, their colonial agenda, their system of rule. with the instrumentalities they had fought, the Indian Army, the Indian Police, the Indian Civil Service, later the Indian Administrative Service, etc. They
Mm.
bequeathed that structure to a bunch of collaborators, and they carried forth that myth. The British wanted to glorify themselves. Oh, the Indians begged us for freedom, and we gave it to them as a gift from our side. How magnanimous!
Mm.
Nobody drove us out. They're not these blacks and half browns and what have you, etc. They could not dare to drive us out. We
Right.
left out of our magnanimity, goodwill. So it served both sides.
Yeah.
It served the British Empire to paint itself in its sunset glory,
Mm.
and it served the narrative of the newly minted government of India, led by Nehru, to say that we got independence in a unique manner only through non-violence. May I remind you all that the iron had a strength of 60,000. And out of them, 26,000 26,000 were martyred.
Yeah.
26,000, that is 44% of the force. This figure of 26,000 in perspective. We have just built the National War Memorial in New Delhi near the India Gate. You know how many names are there on that National War Memorial? 26,244. And
Mm.
this is from when? From 1947 till date. Over the last 75 years, so many Indian soldiers have laid down their lives defending the country.
Mm.
This includes 47, 48 war, Kashmir, 62 war with China, 65 war with Pakistan, 71 war of Bangladesh, in which Pakistan was broken into two, the Kargil war, all the counter-insurgency, counter-terrorist campaigns in J&K, Punjab, Northeast, etc.
So the voice has disappeared. Hello? वॉइस डिसअपियर हो गई है सर आपकी. I think the voice is gone, and it's such a pity that internet is taking its toll. आवाज में भी आवाज उनकी नहीं आ रही है. That's a pity. He was आई थिंक उनकी इंटरनेट में स्ट्रगल हो रहा था, तो वही मैं देख रही थी कि आई पुट हिम इन, लेट्स होप इफ ही कम्स, बिकॉज वो कोशिश कर रहे हैं, अपने इंटरनेट से स्ट्रगल कर रहे हैं. बट वेरी इंटरेस्टिंग कि इतना कुछ, आई मीन फ्रीडम फाइटिंग जो जब आप लेते हैं, आई मीन जब हमारा ये हमें पता होना चाहिए कि जिन जिन लोगों ने लड़ाई कर कर इतनी हिम्मत दिखाकर हमें आज हम बैठे हैं एक फ्री कंट्री में, इट इज़ रियली वर्कड हार्ड. ऐसे नहीं है कि कोई भी उठकर आकर कुछ भी कर सकता है, बिकॉज इतना काम करना पड़ता है, अपनी फैमिली को सैक्रिफाइस करना पड़ता है, अपने आप को सैक्रिफाइस करना पड़ता है टू बी एबल टू कम टू दैट लेवल एंड गेट दिस कंट्री अ फ्रीडम. एंड इतना पावर प्ले होता है, इतना पॉलिटिक्स होता है. आप सुन रहे हैं कि इवन ड्यूरिंग दैट टाइम वी हैड,
Ah,
yes, got
can you hear me now?
I can hear you very well. बहुत
Sorry, in between
yeah,
there was some problem with the net. Okay.
right,
So as I was saying, that 26,000, please understand that the National War Memorial today has 26,244 names out of 1.3 million Indian Army, Navy, Air Force boys, and in over 75 years. In just 1.5 years of fighting from 44 to 45, middle of end of 45, almost August 1945, uh,
right.
the INA paid a price of 26,000 out of a total of 60,000. You do you call such a struggle non-violent? You insult the martyrs. You add insult to injury by wiping out their name. You know, and what about their families? How do they think they felt about this? Those people gave their lives so that you could be free, and this is what you do in return to them. And why was this done? Because Nehru was appointed the first prime minister of India. Incidentally, 14th August, we did not get freedom. We
Yeah,
got dominion status. Please check back.
yeah.
Dominion status.
Mm,
And Nehru's first step was to anoint Lord Louis Mountbatten as the Governor General. Pakistan had the decency to appoint Muhammad Ali Jinnah of Pakistan. We couldn't get out of the millions of Indians one Indian who could be Governor General. We were not fit enough to rule ourselves. We had to have the British. We had Mountbatten as the Governor General. We had the three Army, Navy, Air Chiefs as Britishers, and a number of senior ICS officers still hanging around to run the Raj. It was only a change of label. So the fact of the matter is, Mountbatten's first order was that not one man from the INA would be taken back into the Indian Army, that
mm,
their wartime pensions were to be stopped and they were to be treated as traitors.
mm,
If the INA were traitors, who was the
mm,
patriot? You please tell me, if you can call the INA traitors, then had the British gone? Had the British gone? They were hanging
no.
around in the persona of Nehru, the Brown Sahib.
Mm,
And it is only in 1977, when the Janta government came, that the pensions of these poor people were restored. Otherwise, they were left to starve on the road, on the street. I mean, this is utterly, utterly amazing. I don't think any other country has treated its liberators in this disgraceful fashion.
mm,
But things have changed, and I think 23rd of January this year has been a historical day, because I was there on that day when the Prime Minister pressed the button and inaugurated the hologram of Netaji in the canopy behind India Gate and in
mm,
front of our National War Memorial, where once
mm,
the statue of King George V, Emperor of India, British Empire, head of the British Empire, once
mm,
where that statue stood. Today, we have the hologram of Netaji, and by 15th of August, we will have a 28 feet tall, black granite statue of Netaji in place of the Emperor of Great Britain and the Empire in the East, right? British Empire. Instead
mm,
of him, we have the true liberator of India finding his place. There was a lot of talk of putting a Mahatma Gandhi statue. There are Mahatma Gandhi statue on every piece of
yeah.
real estate of value all over it,
Mm,
all over it. Acres and acres in the Shanti Sthal and this Sthal and that Sthal, and 11 Dandi March, this 11 Murti, etc., etc., etc. And the only statues that you could find of Netaji were in the Chavdi bazaars, back alleys, dirty, filthy.
mm,
That is where he was consigned to. This
mm,
ends the marginalization of Netaji and the INA. This mainstreams Netaji. And our request to the government of India with folded hands has been that now kindly complete this historical process by creating a war memorial for 26,000 martyrs of the Azad Hind Fauj, either at the Red Fort, which was the final objective of their struggle, and if for some reason that is not practicable, then it can be done. It can be done uh, near the statue or somewhere in the central vista or wherever the government wants, but in New
right.
Delhi, the national capital. We don't want it to go to some district in Kurnool or as far away from the national capital as possible, because that is why that has been the clever plot all along to bury under the carpet the names of Netaji and those real warriors who gave you freedom and create a fiction that we got it because of non-violence. You see, the fact is, it is not just Clement Attlee's statement that has now brought the truth out. In 1977, the British declassified the transfer of power archive. In all other countries, in Burma, it was called independence,
Mm,
freedom. In Sri Lanka, it was called freedom. But for India, it was called transfer of power. Why?
mm,
Because it was not independence that they gave.
mm,
You see, that is the clever tricks that people have tried to play on the people of India and the world.
mm,
You know, as Abraham Lincoln said, you can fool some of the people all the time. You
mm.
can fool all the people some of the time, but you cannot fool all the people all the time.
Yes.
You can't fool all the people. You
Mm.
see, the simple fact is that the truth has a very inconvenient habit coming out. अजगर की तरह वो निकल आता है. You see, 75 years after independence, the truth is now out. And how is
Mm,
it out? If you go through the classified, declassified transfer of power archives in London,
mm,
and
mm,
incidentally, the Netaji Trust, we sent a scholar, Dr. Day,
mm,
to London, who spent 6 months photocopying the archive. And we asked him to take a specific look at the correspondence, the
mm,
personal correspondence, the top secret correspondence of,
mm,
the King George V, the British Prime Minister Clement Attlee,
mm,
the Secretary of State for India, Lord Pethick Lawrence, the Viceroy of India, Field Marshal Greville, the Commander-in-Chief of the British Indian Army, Field Marshal Auchinleck,
mm.
the governors of the various provinces, the director of the intelligence bureau, all there, whatever they had said on India's freedom
Yeah.
has all we have brought it. And
Mm,
I have written, by the way, 3 books on Netaji. The first was called Bose, an Indian Samurai.
yeah.
The second was called Bose or Gandhi, Who Made India Free.
Mm,
And the third book has come out this year to commemorate the 125th birth anniversary of Netaji. It's called Bose, the Military Dimension. In the second book, Bose or Gandhi, I have not just cited what the British said about why they gave us freedom.
mm.
I have photocopied those documents and attached them in the book so that people can read them in the original. I have not cited page numbers and para numbers.
Yeah.
I have put them there in the original. If anybody has eyes to see
Yeah.
and knows the English language,
Yeah.
he can read can read. He can read for
mm.
himself. You see, and
It's
from there it is utterly amazing. It is crystal clear.
mm,
It is
mm,
crystal clear as daylight. Why the British left? They
mm,
left only and only because of the Indian National Army. It may have lost the battles of Imphal and Kohima. It won the war for Indian independence. Because in the war, the British kept it. The best kept secret was the Azad existence of the Azad. They did not let the Indians know that an Indian army was fighting to free them.
wow, wow, amazing. Mm,
You know, and after the war ended, they thought they had won the war. Now was the time to show these browns and blacks their places, to rub their noses in the sand. After the First World War, when we were expecting, when 80,000 Indians died in
mm,
that war, we
mm,
were expecting the British would give us home rule or dominion status. You know
mm,
what they gave you? 2018, that war ended. 2019, what did they give you?
mm,
Jallianwala Bagh
mm,
massacre. They
exactly.
said, they said, you thought you did us a favor, you
Mm,
slaves, we give you a kick and made you do it.
mm,
You
mm,
thought you had any bloody choice but to fight for us?
mm,
We
mm,
made you fight for us. We are your masters and you misbehave and we will massacre. General Dyer, uh, use the Gurkhas to fire on us and massacre Indian citizens.
mm,
You see, but the British Indian army that they raised also revived the idea of India.
mm,
It fought the world as the Indian division, 5th Indian division, 17th Indian division, 23rd Indian division, Indian,
mm, mm,
the corporate entities of the British Indian army. They revived the idea of India. They
mm,
revived the concept of India, which the British had tried their best to destroy.
mm,
And it is the 1857 who revolted. The British Indian Army revolted. The sepoys
mm,
revolted.
mm,
Unfortunately, they had no leadership, no officers. They had only NCOs with limited military experience, could not lead large bodies of men. In the Second
mm,
World War, we had reached a strength of 25 lakh with 25,000 officers.
mm,
And this time, when the Royal Indian Navy revolted, there were also revolts in the army in Jabalpur, in the Air Force. It was all
mm,
over for the British.
mm,
18th, the revolt took place. The next day, Lord Pethick Lawrence flew down with cabinet members to talk of, uh, you know, transfer of power.
mm,
So we all know now who did it. We also know how that was suppressed to
mm,
serve the narratives of the colonial empire that was departing and
mm,
of a set of collaborators who were now being gifted that power so that the
mm,
Raj would really continue in all but name. And
mm,
the white sahibs would be replaced by brown sahibs, English speaking brown
mm,
sahibs who
yeah.
spoke the Queen's English. It was
Mm,
only in 2014 that in Delhi we got a set of people who weren't very good at the Queen's English, but they spoke Hindi very well.
mm, mm.
Do you understand the
I
historical
totally understand, and
significance?
it's a very eye opener. So my question to you is that what, because you are completely engraved in understanding of what Netaji's working was for getting our country freed from this 400 years old, suppression of British Raj. He was one of the many, of course, as you're saying, but he was one of the prominent ones. What was his vision for India?
Look, not only a prominent one, I'm saying he was decisive. Had he not been there, you would have perhaps gotten freedom along with South Africa, which
Mm,
also worked on Gandhian lines. When did South Africa get freedom? Do you remember? 1992.
yeah.
So you would have gotten freedom around that, if at all. Because I'm sorry, Indians can be very pusillanimous.
mm,
From the 10th century onwards, you have been sucking up to conquerors who came, looted your land, burnt your cities, destroyed your temples, raped your women in front of you,
mm, mm,
and yet you sucked up to them.
mm,
It
mm,
is only around the 16th, 17th century
mm,
that an indigenous military revival took place under Guru Gobind Singh in the
mm,
Punjab, with
mm,
Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj in Maharashtra,
mm,
and with Lachit Purpukhan in
mm,
Assam. And they destroyed the Mughal Empire when they really rose, when the military power of India rose. They destroyed the Mughal Empire in 100 years.
mm,
Just one, despite all the torture. My own, my own ancestors, Bhai Mati Das, Bhai Sati Das, Bhai Rati Das. You know, Mati Das was sawed alive. You understand what is sawing alive? They
no, yeah,
clamped him between those wooden boards and they sawed him from head downward.
mm,
Okay? His
mm,
other brother was put in boiling oil.
mm,
The third one, they wrapped oil, cotton soaked in oil around his body and lit him alive like a torch.
mm,
And they let them die in full public view as an
mm,
example to anybody else who would dare to revolt against the Mughals.
mm,
And they thought they would cow the people of India down. It had just the opposite effect. Because
mm,
at the end of it, we are an honorable people.
mm,
At the end of it, we are a fighting people.
mm,
You know, all this crap about India being non-violent and Buddhist and apart from ahimsa parmo dharma. By the way, that quotation is half a quotation. Ahimsa parmo dharma comes from the Mahabharata and it is part of a larger sentence which says ahimsa parmo dharma, dharma hinsa tathayavacha. Ahimsa is good, but violence in the defense of dharma, what is right. Dharma not as a religion, as in righteous.
yeah,
Dharma in defense of righteousness is superior.
yeah,
That
absolutely.
second half is cut out. You ask any child in India and he will say ahimsa parmo dharma
Mm,
because he learnt it by heart. He hasn't learned the second half. He's
mm,
not learned, not been taught the second. We are
mm,
a fighting people with a great military tradition. The Mahabharata, the Vedas, the Dasha Rajan Yuddha, the Dwadash Rajan Yuddha, major battles in which 60,000 people are supposed to have been killed. What
mm,
is the Ramayana about but about a war? What is Mahabharata about but about a great Armageddon?
mm,
You know, in which lakhs of people were killed. Right through our history, we have honored heroes, military heroes, those who have the courage to lay down their lives for what they feel is right for their country,
mm,
for their honor, for their people, for their flag.
mm,
And we created a, a castrated culture of cowardice.
mm,
You try to glorify cowardice by cooperating with your conqueror and
mm,
offering only non-violent resistance. I mean, how sick can you get? How
mm,
sick can you get? How low can you? And
mm,
then to the person who sort of did this, he is the greatest ever leader to be followed by that for the next 30 centuries. The problem is that this so-called false myth of nationhood, of how you became free, imposed enduring cost because Nehru had to now justify that he was a man of peace. So he told General Sir Roy Butcher, the first British chief of the independent Indian army,
mm,
he went to him with plans, sir, you need to modernize this army, expand it. It had a strength of 25 lakhs. It was brought down by the British to 3 lakhs
mm.
before they went and then divided between India and Pakistan.
Oh,
He said, you need to expand this army, you need to modernize this army
mm,
because India will face threat.
mm,
And Nehru told him contemptuously, General, India doesn't need an army. I only need the police. Don't talk to me of expansion and modernization of the army. Nobody will dare attack a peaceful country like India.
mm,
And within days, the Pakistani attacked us in Kashmir. Couple of years,
mm,
the Chinese had grabbed the whole of Aksai Chin. When we should have been consolidating our borders, we were busy trumpeting ahimsa to the world, making a bloody, miserable fool of ourselves.
mm,
You can't defend yourself and you go and talk ahimsa to the whole world. In 1962, the Chinese demolished ahimsa so thoroughly. Thank God that we returned to the realism of Bose. You are saying Bose had a vision of a strong India, which would be one of the leading countries of the world. He wanted an army of 3 lakh,
mm,
you know,
mm.
and it was he wanted an army of 30 lakhs,
30 lakhs, yeah. Mm,
30 lakhs.
yeah.
He wanted an army that large, almost the size of the People's Liberation Army,
Mm,
which had reached 25 lakhs. And
mm.
the People's Liberation Army of China had reached a strength of 42 lakhs
Oh, really?
because they had manpower. India had manpower.
Mm,
He wanted to make it so powerful so that had he been there would be no question of Kashmir being taken by one third of Kashmir being taken by Pakistan. There would have been no question of China grabbing your frontier areas. You would have contested China in Tibet itself. You would have fought forward. He would not have let Pakistan happen.
mm,
He would not have accepted partition. He would have industrialized.
mm. Again, the net has.
He would have industrialized. He would have modernized it. He would have truly made India secular. Hello, can you hear me? Hello?
Yeah, now I can hear you. Now I hear you.
Yeah, okay. So, he was an intense nationalist. He would have spread the ethic of nationalism, patriotism, duty, honor, country in a country that had become congenital slaves. Yes, master. The British used to give certificates called Kursi Nashin. You know what that means? That when a Britisher was sitting in a chair, you dare not sit down. You will keep standing like the slaves and servants that you were. And only if you had done a lot of service for the empire that you were given the certificate, Kursi Nashin. Matlab, you can sit down in a chair opposite the Raj,
Mm,
the lords of the Raj.
mm,
There were boards outside the principal clubs in Delhi and all major cities. The Gymkhana Club, the DSOI Club, etc., etc., etc. All posh clubs had a board. And you know what that board read? Indians and
mm,
dogs not allowed.
mm, mm,
If you can lump that blood insult and still
mm,
not fight, then you are some of the lowest dregs of humanity that I have ever
mm,
or can think of. Thank God things have changed. Thank God things started changing with
mm,
the 16th, 17th century Indian military revival of Guru Gobind Singh, which created the Sikh military brotherhood of Shivaji Maratha, which created the Marathas as a military power, of Lachit Burpu Khan, which made the Assamese into great soldiers who defeated the Mughal Empire in the Battle of Sarai Ghat.
mm,
And then after independence, we have fought in World War One, World War Two with credit. with great credit.
mm,
We have proven our fighting capabilities all across the world. And after independence, we have fought 4 wars with Pakistan. And in the last war, that was the major war, that was Bangladesh, we cut Pakistan into two, created a new nation state with the force of arms,
mm.
93,000 prisoners of war, changed the map of the world. That's what we can do militarily now because we are a proud and a free nation. But we had forgotten that we became a nation by fighting for it and not begging for it. And the earlier we get rid of this legacy of begging, the better.
I'm with you. Sir, I want to
I'm
know.
sorry. Uh,
So my
uh,
last question to you is
I,
that,
uh, I'm a bit under the weather, so if I can be
right?
relieved early today, I'll do
Absolutely.
justice some other day.
Absolutely, sir. My
Uh,
very last question to you is, what kind
uh,
of message you are a strong fighter yourself, and through the Netaji's mission for freeing India, because India is struggling with a lot of issues even today. We can always talk about it, but there is a lot of issues on the political front, on the all the our what do you call it, our neighbors front, and China and Pakistan, the policies and everything. I want to just tell you what kind of message you want to give to the youngsters today, what attitude they must have, so that we can restore the freedom that we already having it and enjoying this. How do you want people to join army? Do you want people to be more informed? And how does schools help into this kind of information? Because in schools we are not getting such information. It's the wrong information is being fed, because these are old books, old structure. So I think this is very important to reform our information system.
Absolutely. You know, the first thing we have requested the Honorable Prime Minister of India is that we must revise our history. We must have a set of academics with impeccable credentials who must take a relook, revisit our history, and and reshape it in accordance with the truth, with the empirical facts, so that our foundational narrative is not flawed. Hagiography of a family is not history. History is based on facts, and we must go by the facts which are now available in the open domain. The transfer of our archives have been declassified. They were declassified in 1977. And yet, when Bipin Chandra wrote that bootlicking history of the freedom struggle, he devoted it is of 630 odd pages. And you know, out of this, how many pages are devoted to INA and Netaji? One and a half.
Mm,
That is called hagiography and bootlicking. That's not history.
mm,
And that is the history that was rammed down our throat
mm,
in so-called free India. So
mm,
we want that history to be revived so our children know the truth,
mm,
number one. And number two, we would like the children to imbibe the intense nationalism and patriotism of Netaji. You know, if you go to Japan, children in the kindergarten,
mm,
they are taught Japan is the greatest country in the world. Mount Fujiyama is the most aesthetic peak in the world. The cherry blossom is the prettiest flower in the world,
yeah.
right? And you are blessed to be born in Japan. You
Mm,
should be prepared to lay down your life for your country. That's
mm,
what they're taught, and that's why you see the intense nationalism of the Japanese.
mm,
We as a nation were so fractured, so divided by our enemy that we
mm,
have stopped thinking like a nation. Even today, our elections are run on what? Not national issues, but on caste, on jati, on
mm,
varna, or whether you are a Yadav or a Bhumiyar or a
mm,
Rajput or a Thakur or a OBC or scheduled caste or scheduled tribe, who is the Indian then?
mm,
You'll have to. Bose was very heavily against caste and the
mm,
divisions of caste. In an
mm,
industrial modern society, there are no caste divisions, which were there only in the agricultural era. So,
mm,
the first lesson that we need to learn from Bose is the
mm,
country comes first, always
mm.
and every time.
Yeah,
The
great.
highest value for a soldier is his country. And
Mm,
if that becomes the highest value for every Indian, there will be no corruption. There will
mm,
be no this casteism. There will be no
mm,
these divisions, these sub identities over swamping the national identity, fracturing the
mm,
nation,
mm, mm,
and we have no dearth of traitors within and without traitors.
mm,
Nobody will be a traitor to his country if the ideology of both takes hold. That is what we want. And 23rd of January has been a very significant day when India has revisited its history. India has revisited its foundational narrative. We
mm,
hope to see the change come soon,
mm.
sooner than we thought it would. Jai
Beautiful.
Bharat, Jai Hind.
Jai Bharat, Jai Hind, and thank you so much, Major General, that you took this time with, even though when you're not well, I really want to give you a hug and I want to tell you so many thanks to you. And have a lovely day and all the very best. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank,
Get
thank
well
you.
soon, sir.
God
Thank
bless
you. My best wishes. Thank
you.
you. Take care. So this was Major General Bakshi. I love his energy. Although उनकी जो बातें हैं कईयों को अच्छी लगेंगी कईयों को नहीं, but I wanted to put his perspective. He is a person, he understands what he's talking about. He's fought for this country, he's passionate about his country, and that is what I wanted to present, that to be patriotic you have to really feel and live that passion that Major General Bakshi has written. He's a very well learned person. He's a PhD. He's written 40 books. He's had and earned many medals from our military of our Bharat, and he's a true patriot according to me. And what he's talking about, Subhash Chandra Bose ji, he's definitely, and I would love that every one of you read his books, the three books that he mentioned, and get to know what his point is, and then see and make your point of view. I really want to thank each one of you who has come here and listened to him, and please take time and understand his what he's trying to say, because this is very important topic. Today our country is going through a lot of turmoil. We have our internal national turmoils, we have also our neighbor turmoils. We as young people, we need to take charge, and without information a charge can never happen. So we have to update us with the right information. We have to meet right kind of people so that we can create and clean and clear decisions of our life. So this is why I wanted to take up this topic for our nation, because nation comes first. We can never have if we don't have a stable home, and our country is our home. And so that is why I, being, even though I'm living in a different country, I'm an Indian. I believe in India, and my loyalty remains for India all my life. So Jai Hind, Jai Bharat, and please continue watching us. And I will keep getting wonderful people all the time for you. And give me your feedback. What do you think about this show today? Thank you so much. Namaskar. Jai Hind. Jai Bharat.